Hey, have you guys played Sonic Generations yet? It's so hard to believe that it's already been 13 years since the original Sonic Generations came out way back in 2011. I was only around 8 years old at the time, but I was so excited for this game, even though I didn't really know what classic Sonic even was. I know I'd played a little bit of Sonic 3 on my grandma's computer when I was younger, but classic, modern, that didn't really mean anything to 8-year-old me. All that mattered to me was that it was a new Sonic game coming out, and I was ecstatic. And you know what? I was right to be. This game is amazing. Sonic Generations very well might be the best Sonic game ever released. Even though my preferred style of 3D Sonic might be the adventure formula, I still adore the boost, and this is the best of the boost formula. Like many other fans, this game has been on my mind a lot recently because of its impending re-release with Sonic X Shadow Generations, which, at time of recording, is coming out in less than a month. It's actually a really exciting time to be a Sonic fan right now. We've got the third movie in a very successful film trilogy coming out very soon. The Dark Beginnings animations they just released on YouTube were phenomenal, probably the best non-game content we've ever gotten from the franchise. And of course, we have Shadow Generations coming out soon, basically a brand new game about Shadow the Hedgehog, which is going to be taking place alongside the original Sonic Generations. And honestly, I think it looks pretty fun. It really just feels so great to finally be at a point again where we all have something to look forward to in this franchise. It really feels like they're finally getting into this groove where we can have something to be happy about. Unfortunately, with the re-release though, they are delisting the original title, which is scummy to say the least, and you could say a lot worse. With that though, it did give me an excuse to go back and replay the original Generations for the first time since I was a kid, front to back, and see how it holds up. Now, of course, it did hold up, and there was never any doubt about that, but I really did just want to take one final look at the original game before the remake comes out, just to really examine what makes it so great and to enjoy it one last time. Honestly, I'd find Sonic Generations to be really tricky to talk about now. This is going to be a very positive video because this is a great game, but it does make me a little sad to look back and realize this is the last great Sonic game, and it came out 13 years ago. It's a game that's both representative of everything great about the series and also all the problems that it's going to have moving forward at the exact same time. At the time, sure, it was welcome to see the return of all these classic zones, but all these years later, looking back and realizing we don't have a single new iconic level to add to this list is really depressing. There's no world from the Lost Hex, no level from Sonic Forces, no island from Frontiers that matches the style or the creativity captured in these stages from the first 20 years of Sonic's career. Sure, people are excited to see Sunset Heights and Chaos Island back in Shadow Generations, and I am too, but at least for me, I see it more as a chance to take something that failed to meet a high standard and to bring it up to par as to where the series should be. You know, it's a chance to see these ideas executed well and in more interesting ways than we've previously seen, similar to how Generations takes Crisis City and turns that into something great from something that was previously universally hated. Project 06 aside, of course. It's especially hard when we see about one new idea per game these days, so even then they have less chances per game to impress us with new ideas. On top of that, this game has effectively no story, and the characterization and the voice for Sonic in these games just does not work for me, but that's gonna be a topic for another video. For this video though, I'm not even gonna bother talking about the story. Unfortunately, I am one of those losers who cares about the story in their Sonic games, but this game doesn't have a story. Big monster causes mayhem, Sonic goes through levels to save his friends, then he fights the monster and the day is saved, the end. I don't like these voices on these characters, I don't like the characterization on these characters, and I don't like the writing here, and it's barely a story. I really have nothing new or interesting to say about it, and I don't like it very much, so I'm gonna call that good enough so we can get talking about the good stuff. A really interesting thing to think about is that Generations remains all this time later to be the most evolved and developed form of the boost gameplay we've ever seen. This is the final Boost game to utilize Hedgehog Engine 1, which in my opinion is a much better feeling engine than its successor. Plus, it has the most complete moveset, with every future Boost game having moves stripped back, like the drift, the light speed dash, and the trick system. It really does feel like this is the final evolution of this gameplay, and the apex of it is right here. And I don't think anybody needs to tell you that the boost stages in this game are phenomenal. If you're a Sonic fan and you've clicked on this video, I'm sure you're already well aware of how fantastic they are, but the analysis would not be complete without it, so humor me while I gush about it a little bit anyway. Every level here is absurdly detailed and gorgeous. Seeing Green Hill like this in 2011 as an older fan must have hit like crack. I can't even imagine it. It really does still hold up to this day visually. It's beautiful. It's no surprise some of this team would go on to make the Xenoblade games, another visual marvel, especially for the hardware they're working with. Just look at Seaside Hill, Speed Highway, or Sky Sanctuary, they're genuinely jaw-dropping. It's no wonder they can just keep shamelessly reusing the assets to this day. I mean, they definitely need to stop doing that lazy shit immediately, but the fact that they can get away with it shows how impressive it really is, I'll give them that. Back on track though, that level of detail isn't just visual. It extends to the level design too. Every level is full of little offshoots and shortcuts that make them immensely replayable. Red rings are placed around in such a way that you are encouraged to try out a bunch of different pathways. When searching for the red rings, players are going to be forced to really explore the level and find all the different possible paths, including the fastest ones, which teaches players the best ways to play the game and the most fun ways to play the game. It really shows that the red rings, while they seem like just a simple collectible, really add a lot to the game because they guide players into becoming better players and finding the most fun they can get out of the experience. The red rings in Sonic Generations really accentuate the great level design by showing you all the different options and different paths that you have access to when playing the game. I think that they differentiate from the Sun and Moon medals in a really interesting way, whereas the level design in Sonic Unleashed wanted you to always be going as fast as you can down one main path. Generations has a bunch of different paths with a bunch of different ways to go about them and intertwine. I think that's why Sonic Generations has the best level design between the two. There are just so many different ways you can play the level, they're just infinitely fun. It's really hard to explain good level design, especially as someone that is not a professional. I'm not a game designer, but Sonic Generations levels are just so perfect. They're so well paced to always keep you on your toes, there's always something interesting around the next corner, it's always a good time to play it. And to this day, I'm still finding interesting new things about it. Just recently for this playthrough, I found multiple secret pathways that I'd never seen before. Last week on Twitter, I saw somebody take a new shortcut that I had never seen before, and the fact that this game can still surprise me 13 years later with new and fun paths to take is part of what makes it so good. As glorious as the modern stages are, the one thing that stuck out to me above everything else on this replay was the classic Sonic levels. Whenever Generations gets brought up today, most people are talking about how great the boost stages are, and they are incredible, of course, but the classic stages often get lost in that conversation, and I think that's a shame because I had a lot of fun with every one of them. While they don't meet the highs of the boost stages, they certainly don't fall as low either, Planet was back to. Even just comparing the two Green Hill zones, where I find the modern Green Hill to be a little bit repetitive for me, classic Green Hill I think is still really fun many playthroughs in. It's got a great sense of speed, many interesting and fun paths, and it shows off the 3D environment through plenty of dynamic camera angles and set pieces. It really shows the strengths of 3D rendered 2D levels, having the camera and the level geometry twist and turn, utilizing the Z-axis to make every stage feel like it has so much depth and life in it. I think I'd have a lot less apprehension towards 2.5D games at all if they more frequently used the Z-axis as well as these levels do. Classic Rooftop Run in particular is a stage that I really love, and I played it many times trying to improve my time. I even think in City Escape, Classic Sonic has the better skateboarding, ironically, being a power-up that you need to keep and use carefully to act as higher routes rather than the simple set piece it is for modern Sonic. I really just don't think these levels get enough love for how fun they really are. The classic stages tend to be more willing to toy with gimmicks than the modern stages. Classic Sky Sanctuary has the spinners from Marble Garden Zone from Sonic 3, and it has 3 distinct endings depending on which path you take. Classic City Escape has the aforementioned skateboarding, and Crisis City has the goalpost fly away from you, leading to a final chase to the end of the level. The classic levels are super dynamic and way too good to be so commonly ignored as they are. And that only leaves the bosses and the challenge acts. The bosses are nothing to write home about, but I think they're okay. The Metal Sonic fight serves as a pretty good first boss. It's really easy, but again, it is the first boss and the music is amazing. The other two rival fights, Shadow and Silver, are both pretty underwhelming and not something I ever go back to. Then we have the Death Egg Robot, Perfect Chaos, and the Egg Dragoon. The Death Egg Robot is, again, just okay, nothing really special, but the other two I think are pretty fun. Perfect Chaos is essentially just a level. You run through a level section, get a hit in, and then you're sent to another section, rinse and repeat. It kind of becomes the best boss fight by default by cheating, and that it's just a level, but I'm not complaining, it's really fun. Then there's the Egg Dragoon, which it's kind of cool on the basis that you fight it as regular Sonic, where in Sonic Unleashed you fought him as the Werehog, so it is kind of cool to see the way that Sonic would have fought him outside of that form, and it's a pretty fun fight. There are lots of chances to get extra hits in between phases, and it's pretty dynamic. I think it's a pretty fun boss fight, but it's still a Sonic boss. It's nothing too great. I do kind of wish that Modern and Classic Sonic had an even amount of fights between them. You know, Classic only has 2 boss fights, whereas Modern Sonic has 4, but no one's really here for the boss fights anyway. And if no one's here for the boss fights, people are leaving for the final boss fight because it is abysmal. Forgettable music, lame build-up, bland environment, and to this day, I have never seen somebody actually know how to fight it. Frankly, I don't think there is a way to properly fight it. I think you are just intended to hope for the best. It really sucks, and it double sucks to close out a great game on such an underwhelming, unfun boss fight. Now tying all this together is the little hub world, the white world. I've never really thought much about it, and most people don't, and it really isn't much, but I do like it. Seeing the world get colored back in as you complete levels and missions is actually really satisfying, and the aesthetic of the white void is visually pretty interesting. Littered around the hub world are the challenge acts. They're, again, a pretty small portion of the game. You only need to play a very, very small handful of them in order to actually finish the game, but I think they're pretty fun. They give a little more content for you to play. There are a couple pretty interesting ones, like the one where you get to do more skateboarding, as both Classic and Modern Sonic are both really fun. The Vector DJ mission is pretty cute. There's a mission where SVO helps you swing around like Spider-Man for some reason. I mean, that's in the game. I understand why some people don't like them for sure, but I've always had a decent amount of fun with it. Something that I have always adored about this game is the bonus room. The little room to the far left side of the map where you get little toys and trinkets for collecting the red star rings. Here you can look at concept art, you can read character bios, and you can listen to music from the game's history. As a little kid, I used to sit here and listen to the game's music for ages, and that's how I ended up wanting to go back and play other Sonic games. Hearing the music from Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic CD caused me to seek those games out because I thought the music was so cool, and I mean, who doesn't want a chance to hear more Sonic music? Plus, the fact that you can go back to any level or boss fight and use any of these unlocked tracks is such a cool addition. I mean, who doesn't want to go back and fight Perfect Chaos hearing the original version of Open Your Heart? Or maybe you can fight the final boss with some actually cool music. It'll still suck, but the music won't anymore. That's something. It really is just so great to see this massive love letter to Sonic and this franchise, and it makes it feel great to be a fan and to recognize all this stuff and to feel the love coming back from the developers that we have given them over the years. And that's about all there is to talk about with this game. Generations is short but sweet. It's only about 3 hours in the base game. Now, we could end the video right here, and of course it would get a glowing recommendation from me. However, those of you who have been watching this video with a keen eye, yes, I'm talking about you, dear viewer, you have already noticed that I've been playing with mods, and what discussion of Sonic Generations would be complete without talking about the mod scene? Honestly, I could make a whole video about the mod scene by itself, and maybe I will one day. There's so many great character mods and level mods out there, I can't possibly cover everything that I'd like to right here. The Sonic Generations modding community is one of the greatest testaments to the commitment, passion, and the talent of Sonic fans out there that there is, and that is saying a lot, because there are a lot of talented people in this community. Even though I can't talk about every mod that I want to right here, I do want to briefly talk about some of my favorites before we close this video out. Of course, you have your basic mods, like a mod that fixes the wall jump so that it actually works properly. You have mods that improve the performance of the game, help it run on modern operating systems, and people that make these are genuinely heroes of the community. But let's be real, everybody wants to see the big changes, like for example, the classic Sonic Improvement mod. I mean, just look at him. Isn't he beautiful? I can't even begin to say how much I prefer this model to the base game's model. But wait, there's more. This mod adds slightly revamped physics, an option for a more balanced spin dash, which I opted out of because the busted ass light speed spin dash is way more fun, and it adds the super peel out. It also adds the drop dash, which was the biggest surprise for me. I didn't think the drop dash would affect the way that the game plays so much because it wasn't designed with that move in mind, but I found it to be useful all the time. It's almost hard to imagine the game without it now. It makes me a lot happier about the drop dash being added in Sonic X Shadow Generations. Whoa, speak of the devil, guys, look, it's Shadow Generations! I knew they were gonna add a Shadow the Hedgehog level. You can't fool me, Sega. Alright, bad jokes aside, this is of course two mods. This is a stage mod for Sky Troops and a Shadow Character mod. Sky Troops, I believe, was meant to be part of a level pack that I'm fairly certain was cancelled, but for a fan level, it's really fun. It's got some jank to it, no doubt, but I enjoyed my time with it. The Shadow Character mod is fantastic. He looks great, and it even overhauls the HUD to be Shadow themed. Best of all, the mod gives you the option to turn off his stupid, awful, terrible, no good flying animation for his boost, and you can keep his glorious skating animation instead. I mean, seriously, Sega, what are you guys thinking? The flying looks so bad, the skating is so cool, why are you trying to take it away from me? Modders, you gotta get that fixed day one for Shadow Generations. I want the boost animation fixed, I want it back to skating, I am begging you guys. Tangent aside though, the mod's good, and I'm sure it would pair great with our next mod if I was actually smart enough to think of that before I recorded it. Here we have the Westopolis level pack. We got two levels here, we got Westopolis and Lethal Highway. Modern Sonic plays through Lethal Highway and it's mostly similar to the original game, but with some extended geometry to account for the extra speed. This one's not my favorite, honestly, it's definitely not bad, but the original stage being ported wasn't great in the first place. The real star of the show here is Westopolis, played by Classic Sonic. Now, recently, modders have reverse engineered a style of play for Classic Sonic in 3D that feels similar to Sonic Adventure. I have no idea how they did it, and it's honestly close to black magic for me, but it's so cool, I don't care, I'll take it. So for this, you play as Classic Sonic in 3D through a fully accurate version of Westopolis. I naturally had him wear a Shadow the Hedgehog costume for the occasion. The level design is only changed where necessary for the game to work, but this really is just Westopolis, and it plays great. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. The fact that Sonic fans made this shows the insane skill and passion that they have. Knowing that the game has now been delisted, and to experience any of these mods that I'm talking about today, you have to buy a $60 bundle is ridiculous. And it's so sad to me that it's going to limit the amount of people who can experience the product of the hard work that so many fans have put into this game over the years. I only hope that the modding scene can continue and be brought over to Shadow Generations. Now, coming right off that Westopolis level comes Emerald Coast, of course, the first level from Sonic Adventure. And I believe this is the mod that first created the adventure-style gameplay for classic Sonic, and I cannot give enough kudos for that. It's truly an incredible feat that they were able to do that at all. Now, you can play this with the Sonic Adventure 1 skin through another mod, of course, and it looks like you're playing Sonic Adventure. If the Badniks were the Sonic Adventure Badniks, I really don't know how you'd be able to tell it apart at a first glance. It's crazy what these people have accomplished. I mean, yeah, this is what it looks like. I don't really know either. It's pretty neat though. We'll move on now. Now this one is crazy. Mario 64 Mario in Sonic Generations. You need a ROM of Mario 64 to even get this mod working, and then it's exactly what it sounds like. It is genuinely so surreal to run through these levels as Mario, in a really cool way. It really puts in perspective how much more ground Sonic covers than everyone else when 3-minute levels start taking 10 minutes or more. it really gives me a new appreciation for the levels in kind of a weird way. It makes you stop and smell the roses. With Mario, I found my way into little areas I'd never known about before, and I took the time to really appreciate how pretty the environments are. With this, you can answer questions like, could Mario beat Perfect Chaos or Shadow the Hedgehog? The answer's no, at least in my experience, but I may go back and try again someday. This is one of my highest mod recommendations, honestly. It's just so interesting and fun to toy around with it. I think we should put Mario 64 into everything if we can. Of course, last but not least, we have to talk about the Unleashed project. I mean, it's practically legendary within the Sonic community at this point. All the daytime goodness without that stinky werehog taking up space. It's great. I actually found myself super addicted to this mod, and I played it over and over until I got all the S ranks. By now, the community has made it practically indistinguishable from the real deal, with ported assets, the ported HUD, and even recently, they backported the QuickTime events from the ramps. The levels are just as spectacular as they are in Unleashed, and they are so fun to play over and over again. I don't think I could ever get sick of them. You do, of course, miss out on the full Unleashed package. You don't get the story, the controls aren't quite the same, even with mods that try to make it as similar as possible. And you do miss out on the werehog, which personally, I don't mind as much as the next guy.
Yeah, I fucking hate the werehog.
There is absolutely merit to the original game, which is lost, but for what it is, the mod is extremely fun and really well made, especially since Unleashed is not natively playable on PC. This is even further enhanced by the Redux mods, fan-made add-ons to the fan-made add-on that enhances the Unleashed project even further. Unleashed Project Redux adds aesthetic changes to the stages, making for a really good way to mix up things when you keep replaying them. The most striking change is Dragon Road being on a stormy night. It's almost jarringly different, but it's actually really cool. The light coming from the torches and the heavy rain make for a really different and distinct atmosphere that I really enjoy. Then on top of that, there's the Redux Sonic model. This mod is a new model for Sonic, closer to the Unleashed model, and you can add Chip's bracelet, as well as some customizable options, such as having physics closer to the Unleashed physics. I practically never turned this mod off when I was playing. This model is just gorgeous. I find it genuinely difficult to go back to the base game's model because this one looks so much better to me. Absolutely massive props to the team who made this. This is one of my favorite Sonic models ever. Genuinely just stellar work here, guys, and the physics feel great too. Plus, it pairs beautifully with the Unleashed project and Unleashed Project Redux. The mod scene just truly elevates this game so much. I knew I had to give it a shout out in this video, and frankly, I wish I could have said more about it, but the video is getting too long and it should stay a little more focused, so I'll probably come back to it one day, but I really just think it's a massive injustice that the game was being delisted and access to all these fans' hard work is going to be severely restricted from here on. The game is, of course, great without the mods, but the sheer variety that the mods bring to this game and all the quality of life changes is just astounding. I can only hope that some of this work would somehow be able to be ported forward to Sonic X Shadow Generations, because I would be so sad to see any of this work go to waste. And that's wraps on Sonic Generations. To no one's surprise, yeah, it's still a phenomenal game. I get a little freaked out thinking about the fact that there are Sonic fans now who are too young to have played it at all. It makes my skin crawl a little, but it makes me really happy to know that they're gonna have that same joy that I did when it first came out, when I was a wee lad. The game still holds up. It's still beautiful, the controls are great, it's honestly, through and through, one of the most fun video games I have ever played. I'm super excited to see more people get to play it, and what the community is gonna be able to do with it when Sonic X Shadow Generations drops so soon. And you know, I've got high hopes for this one. Repeatedly over the last decade, I have gotten my hopes up and been disappointed by this franchise, and I know that's a sentiment that many of us share, but I really think we're finally going to have a good game on our hands with this one, a great game, maybe. The story seems really interesting, the animations leading up to it have been really great, some of the best content the series has seen in years, and the game just looks pretty fun to me. I really hope that in another video I can talk about how once again, it was Generations that brought the best out of this franchise. Hey, if you've made it this far, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching. Making this video was a huge undertaking. It's the first one I've made, and I'm really truly appreciative of anybody who sat through this whole thing to the end. It means a lot to me. I have plenty more video ideas already, a lot about Sonic, but also a bunch about a whole ton of other games that I'm also super passionate about. So hopefully if you enjoyed it, you can stick around, maybe subscribe, and I'll catch you next time where I should be talking about Shadow Generations. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.